The halls of the peace station stretched wider than any city on Earth. Floating high above the dark space between two great galaxies, it was the heart of galactic politics. For over a century, it had served as neutral ground for every species that called this part of the universe home. More than 400 civilizations gathered here to keep peace, settle disputes, and decide the future of the galaxy. Captain Elias Ward stood in front of the tall glass walls, staring into the stars. His hands were behind his back. His face was calm, but inside his heart was heavy. He had been here too many times. He had walked these halls, sat in these meetings, and listened to the same empty promises year after year. Today, he told himself, things would be different. The human delegation walked behind him, silent and serious. They wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's United Council. Each step they took echoed across the polished floor. Other species turned to look at them, some curious, some amused, some annoyed. The humans had become easy to ignore over the years. But not today. As they reached the council chamber, the giant doors slid open with a low hum. The chamber was shaped like a circle. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in their seats, arranged by rank and power. In the center stood High Chancellor Varek Zor, the most powerful figure in the galaxy. Varek was tall and sharp-looking, with pale silver skin and eyes like cold glass. His voice carried weight. When he spoke, entire worlds listened. But Elias had listened long enough to know the truth. Varek spoke of peace, yet cared only for control. Elias walked to the center platform. He looked up at Varek. He looked around the room. He knew every face here. He knew every species. And he knew that none of them took humanity seriously. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "Esteemed members of the Galaxy Council," he said, his voice steady. "I stand here today on behalf of Earth and all of humanity. For 50 years, we have served this council. We have sent our ships to your wars. We have shared our technology. We have kept your trade routes safe. And yet, in this chamber, we have no voice. We have no power. We are treated as guests, not equals." Whispers filled the chamber. Some looked uncomfortable. Others smirked. Elias continued, "We have asked for fair treatment. We have asked for a seat among you. But you have ignored us. You have dismissed us. Today, I give you our final warning." The room grew quiet. Even Varek leaned forward, curious. Elias took a deep breath. "If you refuse us again, if you choose to mock us, to push us aside, we will walk away. We will withdraw from the council. Our ships, our soldiers, our knowledge, all of it will return to Earth. And this time, we will not come back." A long silence followed. The weight of his words hung in the air. Varek stood slowly. His long robes shimmered under the bright lights. He looked down at Elias with a small, cold smile. "Captain Ward," Varek said, his voice smooth like oil, "we hear your words, but do not mistake your service for importance. Humanity is young, impatient, reckless. You have not earned a seat among the elders of the galaxy." He turned to the council and spread his arms. "Let them walk," he declared. "Let them leave if they wish. The galaxy does not turn on the will of Earth." Laughter broke out across the chamber. Some species shook their heads. Others nodded in agreement. No one stood with Elias. No one spoke in support. Elias did not flinch. He stood tall. He knew this would happen. He had hoped for better, but he had prepared for this. Without another word, he turned his back on the council. His team followed in silence. The great doors closed behind them with a loud hiss. The council continued its meeting as if nothing had happened. But what they failed to see was the change in the air. Something had shifted. Something had ended. And soon, they would understand the cost. The ride back to humanity's section of the peace station was silent. No one dared speak. Captain Elias Ward walked ahead of the others, his jaw tight and his fists clenched at his sides. His final warning had been laughed at. His people had been mocked again. The weight of Earth's future pressed heavy on his shoulders. They entered the command room assigned to the human delegation. The room was plain but functional: steel walls, glowing control panels, and large view screens showing the outside stars. A handful of officers stood waiting inside. They had all seen the broadcast of the meeting. The looks on their faces told Elias what he already knew. They were done. Elias stood at the center of the room. He turned to face his team, officers, diplomats, and aides who had worked with him for years. He raised his voice, clear and firm. "We've done all we can here," he said. "We've given them every chance, but they have chosen to treat us as less. They believe we need them more than they need us." He paused. "They are wrong." The team nodded. Some looked angry. Some looked relieved. All of them looked ready. Elias walked to the control panel. He tapped a command. A secured channel opened to Earth's United Council back home. The faces of Earth's leaders appeared on the screen. Men and women who had trusted Elias to lead. Elias gave his report. "They laughed at our final warning," he said. "They refused to give us a seat. They mocked our place in this galaxy." The leaders listened without interrupting. They had heard this before, but this time they knew the choice had to be made. "What do you recommend, Captain?" the Chancellor of Earth asked. Elias stood tall. "We leave," he answered. "We withdraw from the Council. We bring our people home." The Chancellor nodded. "Then so be it." Elias turned back to his team. "Send the order," he commanded. Within minutes, every human on the station received the recall message. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, and diplomats, thousands of them, packed their things and headed for the docking bays. Human ships, large and small, began powering up their engines. Elias stood on the observation deck, watching the docks come to life. His second-in-command, Commander Sarah Holt, stepped beside him. "Do you think they'll come after us?" she asked quietly. Elias shook his head. "Not yet. They think this is just a tantrum. They still believe they can replace us." Sarah crossed her arms. "Let them try." The loudspeakers on the station crackled. A final broadcast, prepared by Earth's government, began to play across every frequency in the galaxy. "This is the voice of humanity. We have served the Galaxy Council with loyalty and strength. We have protected your borders. We have shared our knowledge. We have spilled our blood for your peace. Today, you have made your choice. You have chosen to deny us the respect we have earned. And so, we choose to stand alone. From this day forward, humanity withdraws from the Galaxy Council. We will not return." The message played on repeat, reaching every starship, station, and colony across both galaxies. Elias watched as ship after ship lifted off from the station. Thousands of humans leaving together as one people, one decision. They had come to this place in hope. They were leaving in strength. By the end of the day, the human sector of the station was empty. Lights were dimmed. Airlocks sealed. Humanity was gone. Elias boarded the last transport. As the engines powered up, he took one last look at the peace station through the window. "You had your chance," he whispered under his breath. The ship pulled away, joining the growing fleet returning to Earth. Behind them, the council chamber carried on as if nothing had changed. But change had already begun. 2 weeks had passed since humanity's withdrawal. The peace station looked the same on the surface. Busy halls, ships docking and leaving, council members attending meetings. But under the surface, small problems had started to grow. The council ignored them at first. High Chancellor Varek Zor stood in his private chamber, looking over daily reports. He still wore the same confident smile. To him, humanity's absence was nothing more than a small change. He believed the council would adjust quickly. But the reports told a different story. The first signs came from the outer trade routes. Ships carrying food, medicine, and fuel reported strange delays. Pirates had returned to those routes faster than anyone expected. Without human patrol ships, those sectors had become easy targets. Varek waved it off. He ordered more patrols using ships from other species. But those ships were slower, fewer in number, and less experienced in human space. The problem grew worse each day. Then came the border systems. Colonies that once depended on human supply lines started running low on resources. Small riots broke out. Local leaders begged the council for help. But the council moved slowly, as it always did. In the chamber meetings, the voices started to shift. One member from the Dray Coalition, a species known for trade and mining, stood up during a session. "High Chancellor," she said, "we are losing cargo ships every day. We need Earth's patrols back." Varek dismissed her with a smooth reply. "We have other fleets. The council will handle it." But more voices joined the concern. The Tornak Alliance, a military species with sharp bone armor, spoke next. Our forces cannot cover all sectors. Earth's ships were half our shield. You promised this would not weaken us. Varric's smile thinned, but he held his ground. Humanity was reckless. We cannot let children guide the council. Behind closed doors, council members started whispering. Some blamed Varric for pushing humanity away. Others feared the council had grown weaker. The balance of power was slipping. Elias Ward, back on Earth, watched all of this from a distance. His team had set up a listening network to monitor council broadcasts. Every crack, every sign of trouble was recorded. In a darkened command room on Earth, Commander Sarah Holt read the latest reports to Elias. Pirates have hit 6 more convoys in the last 2 days, she said. Council patrols aren't stopping them. Civil unrest is spreading on the outer colonies. Elias leaned back in his chair. He rubbed his chin, thinking carefully. They're starting to feel it, he said quietly. Sarah nodded. They still won't admit it. Elias stood and walked to the large map of the galaxy projected on the wall. Human space glowed in blue. Council space glowed in green. The border between them looked sharp, like a line drawn with a blade. They will, Elias replied. They have no choice. Back on the peace station, Varric began to hold secret meetings. A few council members, growing more nervous by the day, asked if there was still a way to bring humanity back. Varric refused to answer them. We cannot show weakness, he told them. They will come back when they realize they are alone. But Varric had begun to doubt those words himself. The cracks in the council were spreading faster than he expected. He stood by the chamber window that night, staring out into the stars. For the first time, he wondered if he had made a mistake. The cracks in the council were no longer small. They had become impossible to ignore. It had been just over a month since humanity's exit, and the galaxy felt the loss in ways no one could have predicted. The peace station still held its usual meetings, but the energy inside had shifted. The proud voices were quieter. The smug looks had faded. Every leader in the chamber knew things were getting worse. High Chancellor Varric Zor tried to keep control. He ordered more ships to patrol the trade routes. He held long speeches promising stability. But behind the scenes, even his closest supporters had started questioning his leadership. The Dre Coalition's trade losses had grown so large that their leader, Elder Nares, demanded a private meeting with Varric. They met in the Chancellor's private office, a tall room with black glass walls and floating data screens. Elder Nares was short and thin, with skin like copper stone. She walked in with her head held high. Chancellor, she said coldly, our trade economy is collapsing. Humanity's ships kept our convoys safe. Your replacements have failed. Varric stayed seated, his fingers steepled in front of him. We are handling it, he said firmly. Elder Nares leaned closer. You're not. The smaller powers are already holding secret talks. They blame you for this mess. Varric's jaw tightened. Humanity is reckless. They would have turned this council into chaos. Elder Nares gave him a long, tired look. You already have. She left without another word. Later that day, Varric met with the Tornak Alliance's military leaders. They had lost territory on the outer edge of council space. Pirates had taken entire stations. Minor wars had broken out on the borders. Without humanity's fleets, the council could not hold its ground. One of the Tornak generals, Dorn Vask, slammed a fist on the table during the meeting. You promised we didn't need Earth, Dorn growled. Now our fleets are spread thin. We are losing ships, territory, and allies. Varric stood from his chair. I am aware of the situation, he snapped. Dorn narrowed his eyes. Then fix it. Varric tried to hold his ground, but deep down, he knew the council had lost its balance. He had pushed humanity away too easily. He had believed they were just another young race. He had believed they could be replaced. But now, even the smallest members of the council were reaching out to Earth in secret. Private signals were being sent across the stars. Messages asking for talks. Messages asking for help. Messages filled with quiet desperation. On Earth, Elias Ward's team recorded them all. Inside the United Earth Assembly Building, Elias sat at a long table with the other Earth leaders. Sarah Holt stood beside him, reading from her data tablet. We've received private messages from 9 different species, she reported. They're asking if we're willing to return to talks, outside of Varric's control. Elias nodded slowly. They're afraid. The council is falling apart. One of Earth's top diplomats, Admiral Gene Rhodes, leaned forward. They want us back. We could return on our terms. Elias stood and walked to the large window overlooking Earth's capital city. Lights from the buildings stretched for miles. For the first time in decades, humanity felt united. Standing alone had given Earth something the Council never could: self-respect. He turned back to the room. Not yet, Elias said. Let them feel the full weight of their mistake. We don't move until they come to us officially. The leaders nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, on the peace station, Varric began to pace his chamber at night. His confidence was cracking. His power was slipping, and his enemies within the council had started to circle him like vultures. Every day, more voices rose against him. Every day, the council grew weaker. And every day, the one truth Varric had refused to accept grew clearer in his mind. The galaxy needed humanity. But now, humanity didn't need the galaxy. The galaxy was starting to fall apart. It began at the Virones border, a dangerous region far from the peace station. The Virones system had long been protected by human patrols. The border was a key route for fuel and supplies moving between galaxies. Without Earth's ships, the region became a target. Dozens of pirate clans swarmed the sector. Some of them had been hiding in the shadows for years, waiting for this moment. They struck without warning. They hijacked cargo ships. They destroyed stations. They took control of entire mining colonies. The council tried to send help, but they were too slow. Their fleets were stretched thin, guarding too many borders at once. Without humanity, they didn't have enough ships or crews to cover it all. By the time the council responded, the Virones border was lost. News of the defeat spread quickly. Systems across the council began to panic. Leaders of smaller species started questioning if the council could protect them at all. In the council chamber, the pressure finally exploded. Elder Nares from the Dre coalition stood again, her voice sharper than ever. The Virones border has fallen, she shouted. Your fleets are broken, Chancellor. You promised us strength. You have given us failure. Other leaders stood with her. The Tornak generals, the trade guilds, even the smaller colonies' representatives. They all began shouting over one another, demanding answers, demanding leadership. Varric raised his hand to quiet them, but this time no one listened. The chamber fell into chaos. That night, Varric met with his closest advisors. His face was pale. His confidence was gone. He knew the council was turning against him. One of his advisors, Counselor Tyrak, leaned forward and spoke carefully. High Chancellor, if you do not act now, they will remove you. You must find a way to bring humanity back. Varric lowered his head. He had never imagined it would come to this. He had spent years building his power, keeping Earth on the outside. Now, the future of the entire council rested on the very people he had dismissed. Varric stood from his chair, his voice low but clear. Prepare my ship, he ordered. We go to Earth. Back on Earth, Elias Ward stood in the command room, listening to new reports from the Virones border. Sarah Holt finished her briefing with a grim look. The council lost control of the entire sector. They're calling it a total defeat, she said. And now we've picked up something else. She tapped the console. A display lit up showing a single council flagship leaving the peace station. Its destination was clear: Earth. Elias felt the weight of it settle in his chest. He had waited for this moment. He had hoped it would never come to this, but deep down, he knew it would. The council had finally broken. Admiral Gene Rhodes stood beside him, her voice steady. They're coming to ask for help, she said. What's the plan? Elias turned to his team. We let them come, he replied. But this time we set the terms. Hours later, Earth's cities prepared for the arrival of the Chancellor's ship. Military units secured the landing zones. Diplomatic teams stood ready. The skies above Earth lit up as the council flagship entered orbit. Elias stood on a landing platform, waiting. The ship touched down with a soft hum. The ramp lowered. And there, for the first time in Earth's history, High Chancellor Varric Zor stepped on a human soil. Elias watched him closely. Varric's face showed no trace of the arrogance he once carried. His steps were slower. His head bowed slightly as he approached. The two leaders stood face to face. No one spoke. No one moved. The galaxy had reached the edge of collapse. Both men knew what had to happen next. The skies above Earth had never felt heavier. The air on the landing platform was still thick with tension. All eyes were on Elias Ward and High Chancellor Varric Zor as they faced each other under the bright floodlights. Elias stood firm, hands at his sides. He felt the weight of every human life watching, waiting. Varric looked older than before. His long silver robe dragged slightly behind him as he took another slow step forward. He stopped just a few feet from Elias. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Varric broke the silence. "Captain Ward," he said quietly, his voice lacking the smooth power it once carried. "I have come to speak with respect." The words hung in the air. Elias kept his expression calm, but inside, he felt the shift. For the first time, Varric was not here to command. He was here to ask. Elias gave a small nod. "Follow me." They walked side by side toward the Earth Assembly Hall, surrounded by human guards and diplomats. The walk felt longer than it really was. Varric's steps were careful, as if the ground itself judged every move he made. Inside the great hall, Earth's leaders waited. The chamber was filled with commanders, scientists, diplomats, and citizens. The United Earth flag hung proudly behind the council table. Elias stood at the center, facing Varric across the room. "You may speak," Elias said. Varric took a deep breath. He looked around at the faces staring back at him. His voice trembled slightly when he began. "I stand here not as High Chancellor, but as a leader who has failed. The Council is breaking. Our fleets are losing ground. Our worlds are turning against us. We cannot hold the galaxy together without Earth." He paused, swallowing his pride. "You warned us. We did not listen. You offered peace, and we mocked you. We called you reckless, impatient, unworthy." Varric lowered his head. "We were wrong." The hall remained silent. No one moved. No one interrupted. Varric raised his eyes to meet Elias's. "I come to offer what should have been yours long ago. A full seat on the Galaxy Council. Equal power. Equal voice. Not as guests, but as true partners." Elias stood still, measuring every word. Varric took another step forward. "We need humanity. The galaxy needs humanity. I need humanity." The weight of those words filled the hall like thunder. Elias let the silence stretch. He wanted every person in that room, every ear listening across Earth, to feel the gravity of what had just happened. After a long pause, Elias spoke. "You come offering what should have never been denied," Elias said. "But words are not enough." He stepped toward Varric, closing the distance between them. "We do not return to save the Council. We return only if the Council is remade. Humanity will never again be treated as less. We will speak, we will lead, and we will stand as equals, or not at all." Varric nodded slowly. "I accept your terms." Elias turned to the Earth leaders. "Do we agree?" he asked. One by one, they nodded. The people in the chamber stood to their feet, not with cheers, but with firm, silent approval. This was not a victory born from pride. It was born from the long, hard fight for dignity. Elias turned back to Varric and extended his hand. "For the galaxy's sake, we begin again." Varric reached out and took the hand. In that moment, the weight of their failure began to lift. The galaxy, shaken and fragile, had a chance to heal. But this time, it would heal on new ground, ground where humanity stood as equals. The peace station looked different when humanity returned. It wasn't the walls or the ships. It wasn't the grand halls or the polished floors. It was the way people looked at the human delegation when they walked back through the gates. There was no laughter this time, no whispers, no mocking stares. Every face they passed held the same expression, respect. Elias Ward stood at the front of the returning fleet. He had walked these halls before as a guest, a voice easily ignored. But not now. Now, the weight of humanity's choice carried through the air like a silent force. The Galaxy Council had been forced to change. New laws had already been written. Humanity's seat on the Council had been placed beside the oldest and most powerful members. The Council had voted this time with full approval from all members, including those who had once laughed the loudest. Varek Zor, still High Chancellor, waited at the entrance to the main chamber. He stood beside a new, taller chair, Earth's official seat at the council table. Elias approached, his steps steady and sure. Behind him followed Sarah Holt, Admiral Rhodes, and dozens of Earth's top leaders. They wore no smiles, only calm determination. Varric nodded in greeting. "Welcome back, Captain Ward." "Counselor Ward." Elias paused at the title. "Counselor, not guest, not visitor, a true voice at the table." He gave Varric a single nod. "Thank you, Chancellor." Varric stepped aside and motioned toward the seat. "Is yours by right," Varric said. "We begin again, together." Elias walked to the seat. The chamber was full. All 400 civilizations had gathered to witness this moment. Elias turned to face them all. He took a deep breath and spoke. "Humanity did not come back to rebuild the old council. We came to build something better. We stand here not as servants, but as equals. We stand for our people, and we stand for all who deserve a voice." The chamber was silent, not out of fear, but out of respect. Elias sat down, filling the seat left empty for far too long. Around the chamber, other members stood to their feet. Some were old allies. Some had once been enemies. But today, they stood together. Elias looked around the room, knowing the work ahead would not be easy. Trust would take time to rebuild. Wounds would take time to heal. But for the first time, the Council had been forced to see humanity for what it truly was: strong, united, and unafraid to stand alone when it mattered most. As the session began, Elias felt the weight of history settle on his shoulders. But he welcomed it, because now humanity had earned its place. And this time they would not give it up.